You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. Dave Lapham, you can't take a vacation, my friend, because if you try to take a vacation, you know there's going to be breaking news. And we appreciate you taking the time to talk about this big day. As you were getting ready to leave, Brian Callahan ends up getting the head job at the Tennessee Titans, leaving an opening at the offensive coordinator position for the Cincinnati Bengals, and Zac Taylor named Dan Pitcher, always a great guest on In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, and the new OC. And happy to see Dan Pitcher, a young guy, 37 years old. He's one of those top young coaches. And it wasn't just, he just slid into the job, because there was other teams out there interested in hiring Dan Pitcher for their offensive coordinator jobs.
No doubt, Dave. And it's because what we talked about, you have to have a quarterback to win the National Football League. The Cincinnati Bengals have developed an elite quarterback in Joe Burrow and an elite backup quarterback in Jake Browning. So the quarterback room is the best in the National Football League. And, who wouldn't want to be part of that elite quarterback room with the Cincinnati Bengals in the National Football League? And they got Brian Callahan, the development of those guys, an opportunity to be a head coach with Tennessee Titans. And fortunately for the Bengals, the Tennessee Titans stepped up in a timely fashion, because Dan Pitcher had 5 interviews being scheduled. And a lot of the teams around the National Football League wanted to talk to Dan Pitcher about being their offensive coordinator, and for very good reason. So the timing of it couldn't have been better. Brian Callahan takes his opportunity and runs with it to Tennessee, and the Cincinnati Bengals basically are able to go through the process that they need to go through in terms of interviewing minority candidates and whatever the case may have been. And then Dan Pitcher was the front runner the whole time, because, just like drafting and developing players, the Bengals believe in developing coaches as well. And Dan Pitcher has been with the Cincinnati Bengals as a coach for 8 years. He's only coached for 8 years. And now he's a coordinator in the National Football League. Coached at any level for 8 years. He was a scout for 4 years with the Indianapolis Colts. So you talk about a guy that is bright, extremely intelligent, hard worker, he's a star, a rising star, going to be a superstar. And the Bengals did not want to lose Dan Pitcher to anybody else. Plus the fact, Dave, we know that relationships are a huge, huge factor in success at any level in the National Football League. We talked about it with Callahan. I think 2 of the big reasons Callahan got the opportunity with the Tennessee Titans. He has a message and knows how to communicate it exceptionally well. Great communicator. So is Dan Pitcher. Same thing. Has a big-time message, knows how to communicate it very well. Callahan, tremendous relationship builder with people of all levels, and Joe Burrow included. Dan Pitcher, ditto, same thing. Unbelievable guy, great relationship builder. He has tremendous relationships with all the players, all the coaches, and he and Joe Burrow are 1 + 1 = 3. So, I'm sure that number 9 said, hey, my vote is Dan Pitcher. If we can retain him at all, why break up the band? Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back for an encore performance. And I've heard rumors that Zac was thinking about giving up the play calling responsibilities to Brian Callahan next year, because he was getting, it was kind of burning him up a little bit, burning him out. But I don't think that'll be the case right off the bat with Dan Pitcher. I think Zac will probably retain play calling responsibilities until Dan, adjusts to the role of the offensive coordinator. And I mean, if he shows, a propensity to do it right away, maybe Zac will hand it off. But I'm not sure that it's immediately going to be handed off. It might, though. It very well could. But so now, it'll be interesting to see if Brad Craigthorpe, coaching that group, keep it all in the house. Because, Dave, the continuity is such a huge deal. You might have, like we talked about, the quarterback room, best in the National Football League. What coordinator would not want to coordinate the Cincinnati Bengals offense with that duo, that tandem, quarterbacking the football team? And it's like, man, you have that kind of a situation. I mean, that's tough to beat. So, I mean, you could have drawn any offensive coordinator the interest to come interview with the Cincinnati Bengals. There are still many head coaching opportunities vacant in the National Football League. There's a shortage of good coordinators for all those opportunities with those teams from a position group standpoint. So the Bengals wrapped up one that they know, they believe in. There's trust at all levels, back and forth. Belief in each other, trust. That's what it's all about. And with the organization, with the coaches, with the players, all levels. And they don't lose a beat there. They don't have to take a step back, Dave. I mean, it's like, all right, well, we're thinking of making some tweaks and some adjustments, but wait, we have a new coordinator. We got to let him get up to speed. He has to watch a lot more tape. We want his evaluation on who played well and who didn't. Now you're just, it's smooth sailing. You move right along. You don't have any hesitancy. You don't have to wait on anybody. You don't have to take a step back. You don't have to stand in place. You're moving forward and moving on to the next thing that you check the box in from an off-season standpoint. So there's so many reasons why this makes total sense. And I'm glad the Cincinnati Bengals got it done. And Dan Pitcher is more than deserving. And like you said, Dave, great guest of In the Trenches. We're going to miss Brian Callahan, but at least we got Pitch.
A little bit more on Dan Pitcher. As I said, 37 years old, native of Cortland, New York, attended sunny Cortland College after starting at Colgate University. So right there, he's very bright.
Oh yeah.
Was a quarterback himself, and after 1 year at Cortland as a wide receivers coach, was hired by the Indianapolis Colts as a scouting assistant, and then became a pro scout with the Colts before being hired, I believe, by Marvin Lewis, which was one of the rumors that maybe Dan Pitcher might be looking at the Raiders because Marvin Lewis just took a job with them. And then, started off as an offensive assistant for a couple years. 2019, moved to the assistant quarterback coach's job. And then in 2020, the year that Joe Burrow came to the Cincinnati Bengals in the NFL draft, became the quarterback's coach, the role he's had since then. And now the coordinator, like I said, 37 years old, Dave. And it's, when you played the game, I don't think there was very many 37-year-old coaches.
There were more 37-year-old players than 37-year-old coaches. I mean, it's crazy. It really is. The other thing you look at, Dave, from a coaching, group that you're putting together, egos. All guys that are at that level have egos, and they wouldn't be there if they didn't. I mean, they're competitive. They've got a healthy ego, but can they keep it in check? And some of these big-time coordinators are people like, oh, man, you kidding me? Joe Burrow and Jake Browning, you could have gotten any big-time coordinator you want. Well, what if that guy couldn't keep his ego in check? And Joe Burrow's like, this guy ain't for me. You know what you have with the relationship between Joe Burrow and Dan Pitcher. And they both respect the hell out of each other. They both trust each other. Their egos are in check. It's 1 + 1 = 3. Why disrupt that? I mean, all teams in the National Football League are, how can we run this offense the Bengals are running? Well, geez, we don't have Joe Burrow. We don't even have Jake Browning. We don't have anybody as good as their backup quarterback. So, I mean, to keep somebody that both of those guys like, respect, trust, believe in, huge, massive, big time.
Dave, something that we know, having had Dan Pitcher on multiple times on In the Trenches, was he has no problem getting in front of the camera, in front of a microphone. And today he showed that in his press conference. Zac Taylor introduced him, and Dan Pitcher had no problem just stepping forward and taking control of that press conference with the members of the media. And, his answers to the questions that they had, he was pretty straight on point. And as you've said multiple times, why would you not want to be with the Cincinnati Bengals with guys like Joe Burrow, Jake Browning, and Jamar Chase, when you have an offense that you can, now put your little touches? Because as you know, assistant coaches, especially with the Bengals, the way it's done, you have Zac Taylor, you had Brian Callahan, Dan Pitcher, Frank Paul. Those offensive coaches all had input in what was going on offensively. But now you get a chance to have a little bit of a stronger voice when you become the actual offensive coordinator. So it's going to be interesting to see what any little wrinkles Dan Pitcher brings to it, different from Brian Callahan.
Yeah, Dan Pitcher had third down responsibilities. Third down is the money down. Third down is big down. Third down, when you're game planning for third down, it's easy to game plan for the rest of the football game. The third down game plan is hugely important, and he had that responsibility. Yeah. So I think you're right. I mean, it's gonna be what else will Dan Pitcher, bring to the table? I mean, he is uber talented, extremely intelligent, and I think he understands what don't get in the way. First and foremost, you have a talent like Joe Burrow. Like he said, this was the front runner the whole time. And like I said before, the fact that Brian Callahan got that head coaching opportunity so quickly saved everything. Because if Brian Callahan was around for another month, Dan Pitcher would have had no choice but to go on those interviews, maybe even more than the 5 he already had scheduled. And what if somebody fell in love with him, didn't let him out of the building, the Bengals lose out on him? So, I mean, the timing of the whole thing, is extraordinary. Brian Callahan gets his opportunity he's worked his life for. Dan Pitcher gets his opportunity he's worked his life for at the ripe old age of 37. So, I mean, it's almost like the football god said, this is how it shall go. And the Cincinnati Bengals, I think, are going to benefit by it big time.
Yeah, and pieces move in the NFL very quickly, as people saw with Brian Callahan. Once a team feels, hey, that's the guy we want to, they're going to make that decision. As you said, they're not going to let him out of the building when they get him in the building. But
right.
that brings me to my next question is a guy that we're both very high on is Troy Walters. He now could be pushed forward maybe for some other jobs as an offensive coordinator.
Absolutely. Like we said earlier, I think there's a shortage of viable candidates for the offensive coordinator positions. That seems to be, the opinion that I'm getting talking to people around the league. It's like, man, all these opportunities for head coaches, did they have enough good candidates to fill the head coaching opportunities? What about the coordinators? I'm not sure that there's enough viable candidates, viable options at the coordinator position. Might be a little bit, might be a little bit of a stretch there. Troy Walters, man, give him a shot. Interview the guy. I mean, there's not one coach on the Cincinnati Bengals staff that has not been unbelievably impressed with how Troy Walters has handled the wide receiver room, the development of that talent. And a lot of times, David, you get a bunch of guys, that are that good in the same room, handling the personalities, not just the football part of it, but handling, the human nature part of it. I mean, all of it is challenging, and it can be daunting. And Troy Walters handled it like a walk in the park. And every single wide receiver loves him, respects him. In my mind, if he doesn't get opportunity to go out there and at least interview for a coordinator position, I think it'd be a travesty. I really do. But, with that said, I hope like hell he's back here with the Cincinnati Bengals, working with that wide receiver crew that he works with so well, and see if they can make a run at the Super Bowl.
We're talking with Dave Lapham in the Trenches, presented by First Star Logistics. And we caught Dave on vacation, trying to get, recoup from the long season and what we do in the trenches. But Lap was willing to take some time away from his little bit of rest to talk about the news of Dan Pitcher. And but that brings us to the next thing. We had Zac Taylor on early in the week on In the Trenches before you left, right as Brian Callahan was within hours of being hired by Tennessee. And now Zac Taylor can get back to the focus that he talked to us in the trenches about, was evaluating right now the Bengals' own free agents, guys like T. Higgins, what direction the team is going to go with guys who that they still can maybe, keep, like a T. Higgins, or what are they going to do with a DJ Reader and so forth. So before we let you go here, Dave, what did you, now that you had a chance to kind of go through and watch what you and Zac talked about, what did you take away from the interview with Zac?
I do think that he's got a handle on from an organizational standpoint, XYZ, the steps to take. And like you say, Dave, the first thing is going to be, all right, who are we going to retain? Who are we going to let go? How are we going to work salary cap to get that done? And like we talked about with some of the personnel, if the Bengals don't retain T. Higgins, I think Joe Burrow is going to be a little bit upset. So he structured that contract from a bonus and deferral money and all that sort of thing. The cap hit but Joe Burrow's contract is not that huge this season. The Bengals they're sixth in the NFL with salary cap space. So, I mean, Joe did that with the intent of keeping his good friend and great player and great teammate, T. Higgins. So that one's going to be, in my mind, the most interesting one to watch. But like we said, what's going to be left for Jonah Williams? What's going to be left for DJ Reader? How do they prioritize who they're going to keep? Is it like, Lord, if Jonah gets out there, he's going to get so many offers. We don't think we're going to be able to match that. But if we let DJ go out there, being on the wrong side of 30 years old with a major injury, a patella tendon, rupture that he's going to be rehabbing from, how many teams are going to say, I don't know if I'm going to be as aggressive as I was. So, I mean, there are so many things to think about. And then you have to look at what's out there, what's available for other teams. Some years go, what's out there that you can bring in. And then when all that those two pieces of the pie are put in place, now you have the draft, to basically round it out. And you look at last year's draft, 8 for 8 draft picks, all 8 had a role on the football team. And as the season progressed, those roles grew, and everybody had a significant role when the season ended. And some injury, unfortunately, ended seasons early for guys that were making major contributions. So that's life in the National Football League. But yeah, I mean, Zach, they definitely have they have a rhythm, they have a routine. Duke Tobin's already done a hell of a lot of work with his scouting department in terms of the free agency aspect of it and the college football draft part of it. The coaching staff's going to get up to speed as quickly as they possibly can. So the final deal is, what are they going to do at the quarterback position? Who's going to fill in for Dan Pitcher at the quarterback coaching role as he takes the coordinator spot? And the odds-on favorite, Brad Craigthorpe, who's been unbelievably instrumental in what they've done in terms of offensive success. I mean, during the course of the football game, he's the guy that's eyeing the opponent's sideline and getting information as quickly as possible. Are they coming in with substitution personnel for nickel, for dime packages? Immediately identify and get the information quickly to the play caller so he'll have as much time as possible to make accurate play calling decisions. He also, documents, all right, on this particular 2nd and 7, here's the front they were in, here's the coverage they were in. And then he'll be able to say, geez, 54% of the time, here's what they've done on 3rd and 7 or more. Here's what they've done on 3rd and 5 or more. The last 3rd and 7, here's what they did. I don't know if they're going to do that again, but that's what they did all that information. And so he's been heavily involved from not only a game planning standpoint, but game day execution standpoint. And I think if they can still continue to promote from within and feel comfortable about the development of the people they're promoting from within, the train stays on the track. I mean, it doesn't miss a beat, and onward and upward it goes. And I know Joe Burrow has a strong affinity for him, and it's the feeling's reciprocal. So bottom line, I think that unless there's some big shock as to who might be out there as a viable candidate to coach quarterbacks for the Cincinnati Bengals, I think Brad Craigthorpe will be getting that nod probably sometime early next week.
And for those who don't know about Craigthorpe, as you said, there are ties to Joe Burrow. Joe's first year at LSU, Craigthorpe was on the staff at LSU working with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Yep. And then he came to the Bengals in 2019 and then was here as an offensive assistant in 2020 when the Bengals drafted Burrow. So there is a previous history before the Cincinnati Bengals between Joe Burrow and Coach Craigthorpe that makes perfect sense. As we've talked about throughout this whole podcast, was the Cincinnati Bengals have become about relationships. Right. And it's not just players having relationships with each other. It's coaches having relationships with each other and coaches having relationships with players. And no one better to have that relationship with than Joe Burrow, the franchise quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. And, Dave, we sit there and we talk, and he's another one of these young guys. He's 31 years old. And I've heard a lot of, talk about him he's another one of those guys that here in the next 3, 4, 5 years You're probably going to be talking about him in the same breath as the Dan Pitchers and the Brian Callahans as he continues to find his way and earn his way in the NFL.
Well, the good thing is Dan Pitcher, Brad Craigthorpe, I mean, a lot of these guys that we're talking about, Troy Walters, they're unbelievably intelligent, but to add to it, they have a tremendous work ethic. It's not like, yeah, I'm smarter than you. I'll figure out a way to shortcut this. I don't have to grind. You guys, it's sick. You guys are crazy. They are smart grinders. I mean, you can't have a better combination than that. So they don't short the position. They give it everything they've got, and that's the thing. I mean, this coaching staff in its entirety, they work, man. They work, and whatever it takes, whatever sacrifices have to be made, they make them. And I know the players respect it because Joe's the same way. We both know that Joe Burrow's a grinder, man. Joe Burrow is all about football. And if you're a coach that's not all about football, Joe Burrow ain't going to be all about you because he's giving you everything he's got with the mindset that is all about the game. So you got to give it back. You got to reciprocate. It can't be a one-way street. And that's the thing. They know what these coaches are made of. They know what Joe Burrow's made of, and they know that it fits. They know that the relationships are strong, that those relationships have been built over 5 years with Zac Taylor, 4 years with Joe Burrow. Why take a chance on bringing somebody in from the outside? It may work out better, but it may work out a hell of a lot worse. So if you've got something you're comfortable with and you believe in, do it.
If you've not been paying attention on In the Trenches with Dave Lapham this month, since the season ended, you need to be checking out some interviews. One, we had Dan Pitcher earlier in the month. That video is already up on YouTube and also anywhere you get your podcast, you can listen to the audio of it. But we also had Troy Walters. We talked about Zac Taylor. Today we released, which we're recording this on Thursday, Jake Browning after the season has ended. We also have Ted Karras coming up. And I know you are, and Darren Simmons is coming up also on Laps on vacation, enjoying himself. But I know that you're already working on getting the Bengals' new offensive coordinator, Dan Pitcher, to be on In the Trenches when you return.
Absolutely. Yep. Dan will be a guest. It'll be the first time we podcast with Dan Pitcher, Dave as the offensive coordinator, and looking forward to that. Very excited for him. Very happy for him. It is well-deserved and well-earned, as we talked about. He is totally committed, and the organization, it's a mutual admiration society. The Cincinnati Bengals think they have an up-and-coming star. Dan Pitcher will be forever thankful to the Cincinnati Bengals for giving him the opportunity, and it's a marriage made in heaven, as they say. So. Going to be interesting to see how all this unfolds, and I think the Cincinnati Bengals are not going to miss a beat. In fact, I think they're going to be astuteful, as they say, as the offseason progresses and adjustments are made from a personnel and schematic standpoint. Can't wait till next year. It's going to be very interesting to see when and where the Bengals match up against Brian Callahan's Tennessee Titans. The Titans are on the schedule, but we know that it's on the road. I shouldn't say where, but when. When are they going to play the Titans? They're going to be playing down in old Nashville, and that's a great town. There's no question about it. But how early in the season, how late in the season, it's going to be a very, very interesting and emotional game for sure.
We want to thank Lap for taking time off of his vacation to talk about the hiring of Dan Pitcher as the Bengals offensive coordinator. As always, presented by First Star Logistics. We cannot ever say enough good things about the people at First Star Logistics and everything they do for us on In the Trenches and on the First Star Media Group. And Dave, enjoy the rest of your time away, recharge that battery, and be ready to come back and kick more butt on In the Trenches with you.
Appreciate it, Dave. And we want to thank In the Trenches. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals have given all these coaches an opportunity. Well, First Star Logistics gave us an opportunity, Dave, to do In the Trenches. And I know it's it's something that it's a labor of love for both of us, and it's a big time love. And I know nobody works harder than you do, Dave, with respect to in the trenches, and I certainly do appreciate it. And I know all the people that enjoy in the trenches appreciate you as well. And so let's just keep it rolling, man. Let's keep working, Dave.
Well, I know where you're at because I know you're at the First Star Logistics Beach House.
Oh, baby, it's nice.
And I had a chance to go down there the week that they played Jacksonville and spend about 6 days. And I miss it. I can't wait to go back. So I know where you're at, and I know what the breeze coming off that ocean into the house and all the different things that you and the wife can do while you're down there, and the food and everything. And I just know that you're having a great time on your vacation. But I also know that you can't wait to get back and get back to work.
No doubt. No doubt. It's high cotton down here. It's good living, man. There's no question about that. This place is palatial. I mean, it is. You talk about, there is not an amenity that this place does not have. An amenity does not exist. This is a fashion piece, man. It's any realtor would love to be able to list this and show everything that's going on at this piece of property, because it's stronger than new rope, as you know.
For Dave Lapham, this is Dave Berk. Be sure to check out In the Trenches on YouTube, at the Dave Lapham In the Trenches channel, or on the First Star Media Group channel, or wherever you get your podcast. Lap, as always, appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Hoo-day.
Hoo-day.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.